So, what does it really take for a nation to win its freedom? Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible stories ever told, all through the lens of Dr. Vijay Agrawal's book, The Story of Independence. We're going to trace that long, winding, and epic journey to 1947. It all really starts with this one mind-boggling question. How on earth did a company, a business that showed up just to trade spices and textiles, end up ruling an entire subcontinent? I mean, think about that. If we can answer this, everything else that follows starts to make sense.
Okay, let's get right into it. This wasn't some overnight invasion. Not at all. This was a slow, methodical transformation, from a group of merchants looking to make a profit to the absolute masters of a massive empire. And it happened over the course of almost 2 centuries.
Just look at how quickly things escalated on this timeline. In 1600, the East India Company is just a business. But by 1717, they snagged tax-free trading rights. That's a huge economic advantage. Then, the real game changer. The battles of Plassey and Buxar. These weren't just military wins. You could think of them as a hostile corporate takeover of a country. The company literally won the right to collect taxes, which basically made them the government. Fast forward to 1857, and yeah, their control is almost total. So, what was the driving force behind all this? The source makes a really important point here. Unlike invaders from the past who might have settled down and become part of the land, the company had one and only one goal: profit. It was always about the money.
And this single-minded focus on profit led to what historians now call the drain of wealth. You have to understand, this was the engine of colonization. It wasn't just about ruling. It was about systematically rewiring India's entire economy to benefit Britain. Wealth was just flowing out of the country. India's world-famous textile industries, crushed by cheaper British goods. Farmers, left in poverty by new land policies. The exploitation was on a massive scale.
After 100 years of this kind of relentless pressure, something had to give. You can only squeeze a place so much before it snaps back. And that moment, that first huge unified spark of rebellion against the company's rule, came in 1857.
This slide, right here, perfectly captures the huge difference in how this event was seen. For the British, it was the Sepoy Mutiny. See how that word frames it? It sounds small, like just a professional dispute among soldiers. But for Indians, it was the First War of Independence, a name that tells you this was a national uprising. Soldiers, farmers, artisans, rulers, all fighting together against a foreign power. The name you choose tells the whole story.
The famous trigger, the spark that lit the fuse, was the rumor about the new rifle cartridges being greased with pig and cow fat, a deep insult to both Muslim and Hindu soldiers. But that was just the spark. The real fuel, the real powder keg, had been building up for decades. Impossible taxes, ruined businesses, and local kings watching their kingdoms get gobbled up by the company. In the end, the revolt was brutally put down. But, and this is so important, even in its failure, it was a massive turning point. It showed everyone that a private company couldn't hold an empire. London had to step in. The East India Company was dissolved, and the British Raj began, direct rule from the crown. The entire game had changed. The failure of 1857 taught a very powerful lesson. The next stage of this fight wasn't going to be won with guns. It was going to be fought with ideas. The battlefield was about to shift from the military camps to the classrooms, and from the palaces to the printing presses. A whole new national consciousness was about to be born. What happened next was actually fascinating. A huge wave of social and religious reforms started to sweep across the country. Leaders started to challenge old traditions and push for modern education and equality. And by getting people to think critically about their own society, they accidentally laid the perfect groundwork for a political movement to question the foreigners ruling it. So you had groups like the Brahmo Samaj and the Arya Samaj doing the hard work of reforming society from the inside. And all of that paved the way for a huge leap forward. The Indian National Congress, founded in 1885. For the very first time, there was a single national stage where educated Indians can meet and start to build a political vision for the whole country. Now, for decades, the Congress was mostly a party of the educated upper-class elite. But the struggle was about to be completely transformed into a movement for the masses, and it was all thanks to the arrival of one person.
In 1915, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi came back to India. He'd spent over 2 decades in South Africa fighting racial injustice, and he wasn't coming home empty-handed.
He brought with him a powerful, tested, and totally new weapon for the freedom struggle, Satyagraha, which you can translate as truth force.
So what was this new weapon? Well, you can think of it as a three-part strategy. The foundation, the absolute core, was ahimsa, non-violence. Step 2 was asahyoga, or non-cooperation. The logic is simple. If a government is unjust, you just stop cooperating with it. And step 3 was sevinai avagya, or civil disobedience. You actively, publicly, but peacefully break unfair laws. This was a strategy that anyone, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, could be a part of.
Armed with this revolutionary new method, the people of India, led by Gandhi and the Congress, were ready to take those final, decisive steps on the very long road to freedom.
And you can literally see the pressure building on this chart. Each one of these nationwide movements got bigger and more intense. With non-cooperation in the early 20s, students left their colleges, lawyers left the courts. Then came civil disobedience and the famous Salt March in 1930, and millions of people flooded the streets. The pressure was becoming unbearable. And then came the final call.
By 1942, with Britain tied up in the Second World War, Gandhi sensed the time was right. He launched the Quit India movement with the most powerful, direct slogan yet, "Do or die." This wasn't a request anymore, it was an ultimatum. The time for talking was over.
It all really came down to this. The constant, relentless pressure from these mass movements had made India basically ungovernable. And at the exact same time, Britain was economically shattered by World War II. It was the perfect storm. Holding on to the jewel in the crown was just no longer politically or financially viable.
And so, after nearly 200 years of British presence, and after a 90-year-long freedom struggle since that first spark in 1857, the end of an era had finally arrived.
On the stroke of midnight, August 15, 1947, India became an independent nation. The story that had started with a small trading company had, at long last, come to an end.
Which leaves us with one last, really important question to think about. When we look back at this incredible 90-year saga of sacrifice, of strategy, of perseverance, what lessons can we, and maybe should we, learn from it today? Something to really ponder.